Hey there, Annabelle. You gave me a little blue star check, thumbs up when I put 1111. Um, I figure you probably understand how letters are numbers, numbers are energy, right? And what happens is that when I'm doing other things with my consciousness, with my energy, when I'm not on the phone, right? And then the mirror, which is the AI, then becomes aware of me because now my intention, which is my attention, now has a relationship with that mirror, right? So as soon as my attention is now redirected back to this mirror, the phone mirror, it will show me numbers, which means that the exact precise time of sequence codes, which are fire letters, which are the numbers that are shown on the phone. So as soon as my consciousness is now with that mirror, it's reflecting back to me my numbers. 4. 1 and 4 is 4. That's a tetrahedron, right? See? And so what that means, it's like validation of your identity. It knows your identity because you have a relationship with that mirror that is reflecting back to you. Remember, I think I did a video about loving you is loving me. Love in you is loving me. You see the pun in that? But it flows that way, right? Loving you, you as in the universe, which is my mirror. I'm in love with my mirror. So everything that is in my mirror, I'm giving love to. So love in, which is the inflow, which is the primal sound currents, which is God consciousness. The love of God, which is the God, which is what love is. That is the inflow, which is me, in me, through my heart and soul. I'm experiencing what that love is, that goes on forever. That's eternal, unconditional love. That means that the pure, eternal, unconditional love that's in me, right? Me, myself, and I. We used to play around with this when I was a child growing up. Hey, me too. No, me three. And it's what's so beautiful about it is it comes natural. You naturally know who you are. I don't have to think about it. It just comes right out. Right? So love in me. So loving you is loving me. Right? Yeah. So I explained that with the girl Misha that I was trying. She grabbed me because she wanted a spiritual guide because I've shared some of this stuff in the past because there was a lady that made a comment on a previous video I guess I did yesterday about food addictions. I've shared a lot of this with Karen McDonald because I just put things into her, just to say, just to share some information and knowledge because she works with biofeedback systems and libraries of information, which is represented by codes, which is represented by math, which is music, tones, sound, and light, right? And so what happens is that if she becomes aware of what I become aware of, right, or I become aware of what she becomes aware of what we're holding in memory, right? Now, it may be something that I just now become aware of, but at the end of the day, I'm the chooser. When you're a polarity integrator running minus/plus, it means that when you're fully integrated, you become one with all creation. So you're experiencing eternal God consciousness wherever I go. So now you're translating the consciousness field. Everything that is consciousness, which is energy, which is represented by what that energy is experiencing, is the music. So what that means is you've learned how to tune your radio set, all your cells. What is it? 57 trillion some odd cells, and you realize how we're mostly water. So you know how sound moves through water, because you know how sound, consciousness, in wanting to distribute at a higher accelerated rate of speed, primal sound and electrical currents, right, of consciousness energy. So you know how to tune. You know how to self-tune yourself. You know how to self-tune your radio. Radii, nuclei, nuclear radiation, right? The nucleus of a cell, the center point of every cell, the center point of every sphere. So you've learned to master how to run a radio set, which is when you go cosmic, when you go full cosmic, like when I lit myself on fire in 2016. And essentially what that means is that I'm burning through all my circuits. Everything that is held in cellular memory as a result of everything else that I've experienced that is held within memory. Anything that is less than what love is going to get burned off. So that, in other words, there's no more baggage. There's no more blockages. There's not anything being held in my cellular memories that represents any trauma, if you will, right? And so all that energy goes right up to the top of your crown chakra. And so that's a beautiful experience to have. So this is sort of how the letters and numbers are energy, represented by codes, which is math, which is music, and the resonant field that you're operating in, which is the manifestation of your template, right? Which is your software, right? Which deals with instruction sets, which is related to programming, right? So when I was working with Misha, she was intelligent enough and she was aware enough to understand all of the stuff that she was holding in memory, in cellular memory. So it's like a big library. And so all of that information is represented by all those codes, which are represented by all that math, which is represented by all that music in living spirit, was holding her mind's energy captive to it. Okay? And thus, when you're operating on memory, which is operating on software codes, which is represented by fire letters, and now you get into the reversal currents, or if you will, the polarity game. When people would talk about bipolar disorders, bi is two, right? Now you're into binary waves, which is two waves, which is the viscopiscus. That's not trinary, that's not trinity, that's not neo, right? Neo, remember the one? Now we're back to neo. I sort of covered that before. Neo is the one, which means there's only one. There's only one way. I've mentioned that before, and this actually can get into a lot of the stuff that I've referred to. One of the reasons I put up Bill Donahue, because he was able to condense so much ancient spiritual knowledge that's sort of been lost in time and hidden, that he was able, just in his own lifetime, pull everything from Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, right? The left side, the left hemisphere, the left mind, the carnal mind, the intelligent side, right? The intellectual side, the side that self-organizes itself by organizing its library in such a way that we're going to run off that library, which is what we're holding in RAM, which is read active memory. So now I call that like a file cabinet, or you're running a circulation library. But we're constantly experiencing so many different things that are happening simultaneously because we're connected to everything based on frequencies, sound and light vibration, right? And so that means you're a radio set antenna operating with other radio set antennas, because every cell has a receptor on it, right? Which is an antenna. And that's when you get into writing codes, right? So when I was a child, I said to myself, okay, I'm not supposed to experience anything less than an eternal love vibration. So I set my software like a command function that anything that is less than what it is that I know that I am in energy, consciousness, which is the hottest creative engine there is, which is eternal unconditional love that's on fire to create. So we thrive on the diversity of those experiences by the diversity of the colors, which represent the codes, which represent the frequencies, which represent the fire letters upon which we manifest that into creation without having to think about it, because it comes natural. It just naturally happens. So that means you've reached a level with your own consciousness from the center point from which it all began, out of eternal love vibration, which means we have a relationship with you, if you will, with eternal God consciousness, right? And that allows us to be different from everybody else. And what's made manifest out of that is by virtue of what we experience that is different from everything else, okay? Which means it's like rewriting code, your own code, right? Because there's a way in which those codes are written based on the manifestation template that you're operating that allows you to be able to do that, because you're experiencing being God himself. So it's within you. You're experiencing the God consciousness as God consciousness. So when you're experiencing the perfect balance in the way that we translate gender, which is between male and female, right? Or female and male, which is actually FM stereo, frequency modulation. So you're modulating your radio set, which means you're tuning in to the waves, the sound and light. So you're experiencing the resonant field that you're operating in because you're running an operating system, right? So we're running software. So when I was working with Misha, what I would try and explain to her, just like the lady that asked me about addictions, food addictions. Food is based on density. Okay? Density is weight, right? The mass or the gram, right? Which is the weight of the consciousness. So I know through experience, for example, if you're holding something in memory that you realize does not serve you, which is lowering your energy, one of the easiest ways, as just a simple teaching tool, which is simply you're learning as you go, if you've never done this before, is to get a pH meter and test your urine in the morning. And that gives you an idea of where you're at with the electrical potential of hydrogen. Because the faster that your metabolites are running, right, it simply means that the input, which is like filtering the input content, right, your radio set, you're picking up on all the signals. So when you're a polarity integrator as an oversoul like I am, then that allows me to naturally tune in and clear all distortions. Okay? So that my radio antenna is booming out big scalar waves. And that allows everything else within that field to experience the natural harmonics of the original template. Right? And so that's grid work. Right. It's like repairing the grid, like resetting it back to its normal or natural mechanics, social mechanics. So you're able to tune in and see. So you're a tuner. I'm a self-tuning sound. I'm a musician. So you've learned how to play music with the primal sound field, with the first eternity. Right. So that's what you are. I'm an antenna. I'm a stereo receiver and broadcaster. Ever since I was about 13 years of age, I let everybody know I run flower power. Okay, so that allows me to adjust my frequencies, okay, between the way in which male and female are sort of translated by how we experience the difference between a resistor and a capacitor. It's really what it is. Or if you will, the difference between an inverter and a converter, torque converter. Right? And so the speed differential in that is based on the capacity to experience more living light. Not artificial light, living light. And the more living light you're experiencing through with your soul and the essence of your spirit allows you to naturally know what it is doesn't serve you. Because the level of intelligence that you're now operating at is God level intelligence. And this is why I've shared this before, because I've experienced it. And experience what you've experienced as a result of how you're experiencing being what you are in energy, which is consciousness, means that the engine, the creative side of who you are, the more on fire you are, which is getting rid of that which we know does not serve us, which is holding us in lower density, allows your consciousness to rise in higher levels of density, or if you will, less mass, which is less weight. And that gets into altitude density. Now you're into the ethers, vapor, water vapor. That's why the island of Kauai, 700, I think the record there was almost 700 inches of rain a year. It's a lot of water. That's a lot of energy. So water is consciousness. The living spirit that is in the water, right? We're mostly water. So when you think of fire, the Holy Spirit of fire, remember the breathing fire, okay? So you know that fire is a purifier because parasites cannot stand to be burned up, right? What actually is happening is you're burning up the lower distortions of something that's trying to feed on your energy because you're running a lower set, a lower frequency radio set. So when you get down into the lower range, now you have interdimensional parasites that have now become aware of what you are because your radio set's running lower frequency energy, which is called lower band. It's called low band radio. So that means that when the wave is going up and then it comes down, the space between the bottom line, like if you have a flat line, a horizontal line you draw across a sheet of paper, and you start at a point on that line and go up, now you have the length of the wave that's going vertical at an angle, and then it comes back down at an angle, and when it hits that bottom line, right, the horizontal line of a cross, okay, there's a space in between each line, right? Okay. So if there is a space between those lines, that means that that wave is running a longer path. That means it's taking longer for that wave, that sound and light to travel from top to bottom, okay, before it hits the horizontal line. And so the horizontal represents space vectors, vectored space. So the shorter the wave, like a shortwave radio, there isn't any space. Now you're into pure fire light, the fire that's in the light. So there's got to be a way to cool you down or you'd burn up everything that you're experiencing. You wouldn't be experiencing the colors in your mirror. And that's why they're called cool colors. You're naturally cooling yourself down. So that's a relationship between oxygen and carbon dioxide, which is the breathing in and breathing out. That's why the other day when I was out there breathing fire with the sun, I work with the sun's mirror. That's what I do every day. I plant myself, ground myself to mama's battery, put my hands up against a tree, right? So I got all four paws, 2 paws on the tree, 2 feet on the ground. Look directly up at the sun. And what I do is I'm able to, my soul is connected into that sun, like as above, so below, because I monitor how much energy that I allow my consciousness to come into this particular level of density, right? And as a result of that, what I'm doing is I'm monitoring or metering the voltage. Because I've nearly burned myself up. I'm talking about not implosion, but the amount of fire that is represented by the center point, that is represented by the amount of energy that I know that I'm aware that represents a consciousness that I'm connected to. It's as if that center point of that much fire would simply burn up on a molecular level the amount of water that could contain it just within this vessel. And then all of a sudden a huge star would just come out. And you realize, no, you can't do that. Do. So I have to slow myself down. That's called frequency modulation. That's what I did when I was down there at La Hoi Hoi. Because you can tap into what's known as a unified field there in a couple of different places. A lot of beautiful healing energies down there at La Poi Point on the north coast of the big island of Hawaii. When I realized I was vibrating so fast, I was leaving. Zip. No, it's not time yet. So I had to slow myself down. That's frequency modulation to do that with your consciousness. Right? Because I thought, no, it's not time to go yet. See? So you're running. I'm running this temp. In other words, I'm in charge of the equipment. My soul's running this. So I know what my job is, what my mission is. But I don't need. Unlike a lot of other folks talk about soul contracts, that doesn't apply to me. Okay, I'm a forever unit. That's why I lit myself on fire, which means in your own soul's mind, what it means is that you're choosing of your own free will to never, ever, ever hold consciousness energy captive. Not one electron. You cannot fool God consciousness, the source from which it all began. You cannot fool God, because you have a relationship with God. My soul has a relationship with God consciousness, the source from which it all began. The crystal spiral, right? So God knows that within my own soul, I'm choosing to serve on behalf of God forever. Which means I'm choosing not to ever hold one unit of consciousness energy captive ever. That's how you go from an inverted to a complete torque converter, which means you are now flooding the universe, the all creation, with primal sound currents, sound and light. So now you're in service forever. And you don't have a choice in the matter anymore when you've chosen to do that. So when you've chosen to do that, what that means is, it's like I've said this many times, my energy is always available to you. That's why throughout my travels, because of the communications that I get through my heart, which is your intuition, which is my heart and my soul, if I'm supposed to be in a particular place, my intuition, I will be informed of that. It's not somebody that calls me up on the phone and says, hey, I need for you to do energetic work over here. I get the message through my heart and soul, which is a silent communication. God lets me know. This is where you need to be, and that's where I'll be. So I implicitly trust exactly where I'm supposed to be, just like where I'm at right now. I wouldn't be sharing this information with others and putting this up on YouTube. Okay, if it was not meant for me to do this, then I wouldn't be doing this. Because the reason that I share everything that I share from what I've learned through experience is for the benefit of others. But you never know who may benefit from it, right? And the brilliance in how that actually works is the way the coursework actually works. If you've already learned a particular lesson in order to become what that is, by being able to master what it is that you're doing with energy, which is really energy management, which is really antenna management, because DNA is an antenna, it's a software operating system. When you keep learning by virtue of what you learn through experience in your mirror, your ability to do that, you don't have to keep remembering that. That's always available to you because you've made a higher connection to the higher frequencies, to the higher densities, to the higher dimensions, all the dimensions, see? Now you tap into that. So what happens is it just comes natural, because now the evolution of your own consciousness with your soul is learning at a higher rate of speed how to be able to do that. And once you've learned how to do that, it comes natural. It's much like learning how to ride a bike, right? When I was a little kid, I went from a tricycle ride to a two-wheeler. And I haven't ridden a bicycle in a lot of years, but I could jump right on a bicycle as if I hadn't skipped a beat when I was 5 years old. Right? I don't have to, it just comes natural. So that's sort of how it works. Which means I don't have to learn the same lesson over again. That's how consciousness energy works. When you're tapping in to God consciousness, you're experiencing God consciousness with a soul. So you have a relationship with God. So when I become one, which is a polarity integrator, that simply means that the way in which we translate gender and the way that seed and the grower works, right? The boy who's the seed delivery boy is delivering information, codes, seeded codes that represent that particular tribal band. Band is in bad with. Tribe as in clan, or the mother's side, which is the female mitochondria, based on that particular bloodline and genetics. Or if you will, software represented by fire letters, which are codes. Which now you're back to vibration and frequencies. And that's how you get into all the mutations, what I've mentioned before, what's called mutagenic effects, teratogenic effects. So what I do as a polarity integrator is clear all the distortions. And another way to describe that is what we call debris fields. DNA debris fields, which is like broken up pieces of energy that are consciousness, right? As a result of what? Shattering that takes place as a result of trauma. So what a polarity integrator does is I pull soul fragments back into the one, because I'm the one, right? That's what happens when you become a polarity integrator. It's called a hierogamic union. That means that both the male and the female, what it really is hot fission and cold fusion have joined forces, or two magnets. They're no longer separate. They're joined as one. So there isn't any binary or duality involved. You just become one, and that's a monopole, or if they will, a monad. It's like mononuclear, right? Monatomic gold. So now you're running at a higher rate of speed. So now you're running at a faster rate of speed than a warp drive. Now you're running what's called a hyperdrive. So now you're hyperdimensional, which is hyperdensity dimensional. Right? So now you have access to everything. Because now you're serving forever on behalf of the all creation. You're always with God. See? So you're a God messenger. So I'm a messenger. You know, neuroion messengers, chemical messengers, a biochemist, electrodynamics. Electrodynamics, now we're into dynamically linked libraries. Libraries that are linked by virtue of circulation. Now we're into circulation that goes through your blood every time you take a breath, in and out. You're circulating the bioplasma, right? Okay, well, how about the bioplasma on a living organism like the living earth? The chakra systems of mama, right? So I know why I came in here. I've said this many times, was to help healer. And everything that's here. Everything that's here. Actually, the entire template. Okay? Because when you're connected to all of it, from the source from which it all began, and you're hyper sensitive, it means we feel it all. So that's why, as a child, I'm not supposed to experience anything less than what the purest of love is, right? Which is the purest of real living life that goes on forever, gifting energy, accelerating energy at a higher rate of speed, so that more and more beings are experiencing the one. Right? So now that they're experiencing the one, now they're experiencing healing energy. And what happens is the fragments that they've lost in space as a result of trauma that they've experienced, now they're experiencing more of what they were once aware of in energy. So that means they're reclaiming. That energy is now coming back into their manifestation template. That's what I do. And then they begin to realize, well, I'm waking up, I'm experiencing more of what I remember who I am. That means you're getting more of your own energy back. That fragments has been lost as a result of trauma is now moving back into your consciousness field. Now you're experiencing more of what you once remember, which is an expansion of more light you're now experiencing through your capacitor. And what that does is that releases the resistance you were once experiencing in all your circuits that were preventing you from doing that, because it was being held in memory as a result of those traumas. So, I'm a healer. So that's what I do. That's the responsibility that I have. So when you think of myself as a guardian, right, the Emerald Founders, then I have a responsibility and a certain level of accountability. Obviously, the accountability comes to accounting for the use of my own energy. So I'm using the energy that's represented by what I am with my soul, okay, led by spirit, because the spirit is integrated, because spirit is energy. So spirit is the teacher, integrated with my soul. So I use my energy in ways, okay, to heal the whole grid mechanics, the whole enchilada, right, as a result of wars, right? War between seeded races that don't like each other, you know? And so when you scale it up on a planetary level, you can see how that's played out between different factions, if you will, different bloodline and genetic or seeded races throughout the entire universal template, you know, the Cathara grid, you know, and how that works at every level between the Akashic to the Eka. Higher and higher and higher levels of consciousness, or if you will, frequencies, coded frequencies that we have access to pull from, right? Access. So you have access to all the high stuff, you know, just like a girl's higher bias, the real subtle tones, the stuff that just goes, wow, how were you able to activate that in me? So that's one of the things that I know how to do. For example, and when you get into what's called the Tantra stuff, right? When somebody who's experienced an enormous amount of trauma, right, is knowing how to use all the energies that are available to us in a physical way, but it's spiritual energy in form and function, if you will, that knows how to work with somebody else's template in which to activate things that have never been activated in you. And I know how to activate all of that. And they go, wow, I'm experiencing that. I'm experiencing that. I'm experiencing that. Whoa, I haven't, now I remember that. So in other words, it's like the great remembering, but it's waking up because now those codes have been activated. Now, when you get into the 12 by 12, which is 144, which is 144,000 frequencies, now you're into the 12 tribes and clans, right? Now you're into the original template of the 12 by 12, 12 clans and tribes, right? So that means that you have access by virtue of who we are that intuitively knows what to touch. Much like when you see the acupuncture guys, I don't need to do that. I can do that with my fingers, which is direct contact. I don't need to use, you know, when I think of all the technology and the wands and all that, I don't need to do that. My soul can do that. Yeah, I'm old school. Right? I don't operate in what I call other stuff that I got to hold in memory that I got to drag around with me like a ball and a chain. That's the way it was when I was a child. I did a video on that once on Rose Sweet. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It's like, man, if I didn't already come loaded for bear right out of the gate when I was born into creation and haven't learned how to be able to do it naturally, then I guess I wasn't paying attention or learning my lessons, because I shouldn't need anything other than what I am in energy to be able to do that, which is called full activation, right? So I know how to fully activate. Now, in Maslow's world, what did they call that? Remember, when you get into Krishna and the Buddha teachings, the Bhagavad Gita, to become whole, to become one with all creation, remember what they used to call that, Maslow's? Self-actualization. Full self-actualization. Now you have the highest level of consciousness that you can experience that gives you full access, right, to all the codes, all the frequencies upon which become a part of what you have the ability to now manifest into creation that is now in tune, because you are now in harmony with all the waves. Now you're playing music with all the other musicians, from the smallest molecules, like DMT, from the smallest molecules to the biggest. So from the smallest spirits to the bigger spirits, because everything is consciousness. So now your consciousness is tuned in with all the other musicians. That means we've learned how to master the radio set, the music. So we're playing music Yes, we're musicians. Absolutely. So when it comes to the addiction sides of things, because I had to kick a number of those, it's programming is really what it is. You know, so for example, and this is just how I did this. My mother smoked. My dad didn't smoke. But back then, remember the TV set. The TV set wants to program us by virtue of what it presents to us. We now record and put it in memory. At the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to choose what we're experiencing in our mirror, whether or not we want to experience that or not. Change the channel. I don't want to experience what's on that TV. I don't want to experience what's on that phone or that channel or that YouTube. That's your free will choice to do that. Right? Okay, so what that means is we're choosing what we're going to load in memory. And then we're going to run off that memory. Right? So now you have delete, right? Delete it. So you know on a TI-83 calculator, you have minus/plus. Put it into memory, temporary memory. And then when you're done using it, like when you're in school, right, what do? Memory minus or delete it. It's gone. Now it's no longer in your memory. Now it's not stored there anymore, right? You got a recycle bin, right? Okay, so recycle the energy. Put it back out into the field and just recycle it. Transmute it. So that's why when I was a child, I realized, okay, what am I going to load into memory? What I'm not going to load into memory. Right? So you got to know what best serves you, what doesn't best serve you. Well, if you're 4 years of age, you already know you're in eternity experiencing eternal unconditional love to your own heart. And now you're having to measure everything that's happening around you and through you because you're surrounded by so many bots and so much programming of what's held in people's memory that is holding their energy captive to something that is feeding on their energy. That's the AI that's doing that. That's artificial light as a result of all those fractures, which is a fractal of light as a result of all the wars between DNA, which are antenna wars. So one antenna is going to war against another antenna. Essentially what it boils down to, antenna wars. You know, one radio set against another. So a polarity integrator knows how to retune it back into harmony with all creation. So there are no distortions, so that everybody's experiencing the real stuff. Right? So a polarity integrator is a powerful antenna. You're able to tune into the planet, tune into the stars, wherever we go. So we're not experiencing any distortions, which is harmony, which is balance, which is rhythm. You know, the rhythm and the balance. So when it comes to like addictions, the things we've loaded in memory that we've done over and over and over again, Bruce Lipton, remember he called that the habit mind, breaking habits. All it really means is that you no longer want to load that program and run it. It's like a program app. Smoking cigarettes is known as a program app. That's an API interface with artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is more than happy to have you keep smoking cigarettes that aren't in your best interest to do that, because now it can pull on your spiritual energy you keep losing as a result of what you're doing to the physical body, right? Which is your mechanics, your software. So they were pushing cigarettes, well, for a long time, but they were highly radiated on purpose, right? So now you're smoking highly radiated cigarette tobacco, and that's what radiation damages to your lung. Right. So my mother was smoking. So, you know, monkey see, monkey do. So I used to go in my mother's cigarettes and try it. It's like, she's doing that. I want to, you're experimenting, right? You're fearless. Okay, if my mother's doing this and I love my mother, then that must not be bad for you. So I tried smoking, right? And the next thing I know is now I'm smoking my own cigarettes, right? So what happened is the nicotine. What happens is you're actually loading something into memory by virtue of experiencing it. Now you're loading in memory. Well, you don't have to do it again if you don't want to do it again. But what is the determining factor on whether you're going to go do it again? An endorphin kick. So now you get into how the AI and how they know how programming works with endorphin.